The Dungeonmaster is a 1984 fantasy sci-fi film from 7 different directors. I'll cover that later. Anyway, the movie opens with Paul Bradford having a nightmare. A sexy nightmare. He chases this woman around an abandoned prison. You know what's missing here? Ominous clouds! This woman in Red prequel is bizarre. She leads him to a smoky room where she disrobes and, well, I can't show you this, but take my word for it. It was the 80s, and waxing wasn't really a thing yet. They go to the bedroom set and prepare for the fun times. Oh, now the nightmare begins. Some monster guys show up, knock out Paul, and steal the girl. With some clever editing, this could play out like a safe sex ad. The monsters haul the girl off into the intro credits. Empire Pictures presents The Dungeonmaster RAGEWAR. This is going to be one of those movies with like 15 different titles, isn't it? After the credits, we find Paul asleep on his computer. Man, we really thought talking computers would sound like this.
Late for repair appointment. Please respond.
Instead of a very pleasant wine mom.
You need to order more wine.
Remember when glasses took up like 50% of your face? Paul's computer is named Cal. Certainly not to be confused with Hal. While at work, he's fixing some circuit boards. Ah, where's your anti-static strap? Whoa, did this movie predict Google Glass?
It all costs money.
After work, he's talking to his friend Don. Don wants to drive home, but Paul jogs everywhere. I guess we know who the cool one is. The virgin Don's stupid, dumb, expensive car gets stuck at traffic lights, while the Chad Paul uses his magic glasses to keep on jogging. Furs! 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 Meanwhile, in Killer Workout, Paul's girlfriend Gwen is teaching aerobics. On the way home, Paul passes by a woman selling flowers she picked out of her neighbor's yard. He doesn't have any money, so he uses his magical glasses to get some from the ATM. Paul is relaxing and talking to Cal. Gwen arrives with the groceries. Paul gives her different flowers than the ones he bought. He then drops this.
Let's get married. Look, it'll be perfect. I talked it over with Cal. It all adds up.
You talked it over with Cal?
He wants to get married because the computer said it was a good idea. That's gonna make her feel dandy. Gwen is jealous of Cal. Disgusted, she uses sex to distract him from the computer.
Let's go to bed. At least that's one place I know I'll have all your attention.
Oh, that's where you're wrong. That night, Paul has a dream he's in the Running Man? What kind of armor is this? I think it was made out of an old seat cushion. Paul walks around and finds Gwen taking a bath. Ah! Now they'll never get that smell out of the fish! Paul then finds himself imprisoned and dripping with goo. Oh, right, it was a dream. Or was it? Who left the stove on? Paul goes looking for Gwen and gets teleported to another dimension.
Help! I'm trapped in a Motley Crue video!
Just then in warps Bull Shannon! Richard Mall just doesn't look right with hair. Especially a mullet. This is Metesma. You know him as the Devil. Metesma tells him his magic is something he's never encountered, and challenges him to a duel to the death. Then he puts Paul back in his retro-futuristic armor, complete with the power glove. It's so bad. On his arm, Metesma condensed Cal to be a portable computer. Is that a prototype Predator gauntlet? Metesma tells him that he's the first worthy opponent he's had in a long time. The last one was some guy who played the fiddle, and, well, that didn't go so well for him. Metesma then knights him as Excalibrate. Wasn't Excalibrate one of the hackers with Crash Override and Acid Burn? Mr. Devil, some of the metal is coming off your sword. He tells Paul he has to overcome 7 challenges or he and Gwen are both doomed. He then teleports Paul to the first challenge. Paul and Gwen arrive on a frozen planet made of styrofoam. They find a bunch of statues of people that existed throughout history, like Jack the Ripper and Louis XVI. That's great. Who's the werewolf guy?
Looks like every criminal in the world is here.
Oh my God, that's Einstein.
Albert Einstein is a criminal? I'm starting to think the writer just ripped off the box segment from Logan's Run. Metesma turns up the AC and freezes Gwen. He then raises the temperature, which wakes up the statues. Paul and Gwen fight off the baddies, and he throws Einstein's crystal, which blows them up. Paul wakes up in Challenge 2. He fights off some zombies in a cave made out of plastic bags. The ruler of this place is Uncle Impy! I was wondering what he's been up to. The hand puppet then tells him he needs to fight off the zombies or die. Paul's in a bad spot, so he zaps the crystal and the staff, and they disappear. How did he know to do this? In order to leave, Paul has to fight undead mirror image Paul, who looks a little taller than Paul. He refuses to fight and the zombie disappears.
I reject your reality and I substitute my own.
Looks like Adam Savage is a Dungeonmaster fan. Paul gets teleported back and checks on Gwen. Metesma proves how evil he is by rubbing the back of his hand on her boobs. Metesma and Paul then have a very short laser dragon battle. Well, that accomplished nothing and probably cost several $1,000s. At least it looked cool. Metesma then tortures them with his own music that's so evil you go mad just listening to it.
This is a piece of my own composing.
Paul tries to counter with rock, and so Metesma sends him to a Wasp concert. Awesome! Wait, I thought metal was the devil's music. Paul gets attacked by women with Lee press-on nails. Blackie Lawless is, as usual, having a great time. I love when movies use the actual song and band. If they made this in the 90s, they probably would have had GWAR. Paul uses his computer to make a sonic boom to knock out the devil. Paul wakes up in the woods, where some Nelwyn thieves steal his computer. He chases them until finding a giant miniature. He gets Cal back, but that upsets the Guardian. So now he has to fight the stop-motion animation. It's got a laser? Paul programs Cal and...
Headshot.
Metesma wants a go at Gwen, so he tries to cut Paul a deal. He tries to tempt him with money and women. It doesn't work.
Be gone, fuck!
Metesma then sends him to his next challenge. He puts him in present day, where he has to find a serial killer who's targeting Gwen. The police find him with a body and arrest him for murder. Over in the serial killer's apartment, why do criminals always hang up their news clippings? The police try a little light humor.
What are you supposed to be in that outfit? Gumby?
What even is this joke? It would have made sense if he was wearing green, I guess. Well, they are cops and not comedians. Paul uses Cal's laser to open the handcuffs. He then jumps out the back of the car and takes off. In another part of town, Gwen runs into the killer. Good thing they introduced that jogging in the beginning. He saves her just in time. Paul then goes to his next challenge. He hears Gwen inside a cave. I'm pretty sure this is where the glaive is located. Ah, the Cave of the Crystal Dildo. He follows the voice and runs into the inhabitants of Nilbog. He kills the demon and it turns into an angel. Sure, these challenges are pretty weak. Paul and Gwen get sent to the next place, the airplane graveyard. Hey look, over there they're filming an S Club 7 video. Some discount Tusken Raiders show up. Paul triple shots the mutants and steals their car. He's then chased by the bad guys and the Rainbow Sherbert-mobile. Gwen decides to get her Furiosa on and blast the baddies. She does pretty well, but then Paul drives right into an oncoming car. I guess he rolled a 1. Well, that was the last challenge, and he failed. Paul then challenges Metesma for their freedom. Metesma accepts, and Paul very easily yeets him off the cliff. Why didn't he just do this in the beginning? Paul's losing his grip, so Cal sends him a light pole to grab onto. With Metesma dead, they warp back to reality.
We won!
Hello, Paul. I'm back.
I'm not so sure.
Yeah, there's still like 10 minutes left. This ain't over. Metesma's gonna show up in our world and... What? That's really the end. The Dungeonmaster was filmed in 1983 for Charles Band's Empire Pictures. The movie was made as sort of an anthology. Each segment was written and directed by different people. Ice Gallery was written and directed by ROSEMARIE TURKO. Demons of the Dead was written and directed by John Carl Buechler. Heavy Metal was written and directed by Charles Band. Stone Canyon Giant was written and directed by David Allen. Slasher was written by Jeffrey BYRON and directed by Steve Ford. Cave Beast was written and directed by Peter Manoogian. Desert Pursuit was written and directed by Ted Nicolau. The movie was originally released as RAGEWAR, The Challenges of Excalibrate, which didn't work. It was retitled to Digital Knights, then just RAGEWAR, and then finally, The Dungeonmaster. In the early 1980s, Dungeons & Dragons was exploding in popularity, so the name change to The Dungeonmaster was to take advantage of this. This movie was made right after Metal Storm, the destruction of Jared's Sin. They carried over both Richard Mall, who played Metesma, and Jeffrey Ryan, who played Paul. The movie was released in Europe in 1984, but didn't make it to the US until 1985. Also, for some reason, the Sexy Dream Sequence intro was cut in the US release. Although cutting that intro made a short film even shorter. The intro was roughly 4 minutes long. That made the movie about 69 minutes. With the end credits running for 10 minutes, that made the actual movie less than an hour long. With all these segments mashed together, you'd think they would have had too much material instead of barely enough. Most of the directors continued to work with Band when Empire ended, and he started Full Moon. This was Stephen Ford's sole directing credit. He had much greater success in acting, and was in movies like Eraser, Contact, and Black Hawk Down. He's also the son of former President Gerald Ford. Years after the movie, on an episode of Mythbusters, Adam Savage said this:
"I reject your reality and substitute my own."
In a Q&A, he revealed that in the 90s, he was working on movies with miniature effects designer Ralph Miller. One day, Ralph said the line, and Savage liked it so much, he saved it to use at a later time, which turned out to be on Mythbusters. He had no idea it would become as popular as it did. I checked, and it doesn't seem that Miller worked on Dungeonmaster. It could be that he saw the film, and then, like Adam, decided to use the line at the right time. Dungeonmaster is silly. Here's all this talent thrown together for one movie, and it's a weird mishmash of stories. There's no real cohesiveness. It just goes from story to story, with Metesma showing up every so often to taunt Paul. Each segment is too short, so we never really get a chance to enjoy the setting before moving on to the next one. The Wasp segment is my favorite, but really, it's just a music video. Also, Wasp was so popular at the time, they made one of the posters up to showcase Blackie Lawless, even though he's only in the movie for a couple minutes. David Allen's stop-motion work was great as usual, and John Carl Buechler's zombies reminded me of his zombie Jason in Friday the 13th Part 7. The puppet Rat Spit was a bit weak though. Although to be fair, an Empire budget is usually pretty low. Now take that and cut it up into 7 segments, plus the wraparounds, and most likely each director had very little to work with. Still, it was probably a fun project to work on, and a way for Band to see if there was any talent that stood out. I still love Empire and Full Moon. This is just one of my lesser-liked movies. I can't think of a way to end this episode, so I'll just let you know. I accidentally said the villain's name wrong this entire video. I'm terrible with names.
You are a worthy opponent for Mestima.